compared. So now I was told to find similarities and the differences. So this is what I did. Now this is where I had to go back and listen to his testimony for the first time, because I didn't know anything about it. So I listened very carefully, and I started to do what I was asked to do or told to do, and that was to find the similarities and find the differences. Well, to my surprise, I was surprised. I was looking at this and finding that the sequence in the beginning of both of these experiences that we experienced here, I thought, wow, like, I was 12, like he's a grown man. It was just, the sequence was spot on. There was no difference in that. Only at the end of it was there differences, but at the beginning of it, everything was the same. That took me there. So I started to understand, and I started to see something unfold before me when I was going through this. Okay, so now that I've done that, I'm asking myself, okay, what is this? What is this, this beast? Like, what's the origin of this? Where do they come from? I'm not listening to any man. I want to know directly from God. I need to know from Spirit. Where did these things come from? Like, where did it start? And that's when I heard Jekoias 9 say, the seed of Cain. So as soon as I heard the seed of Cain, I knew right away. I thought, what? And I felt for the very first time in a long time, since I met Iris, actually, the first time I met Iris, I felt the same way. When she yelled out, the Spirit will lead you into all truth. I heard the truth. I woke right up. I was excited, and I was just raring to go. Let's go, And I stood by that truth as I stand by Jekoias 9. So when Jekoias 9 said this, I shot right back to the garden. And here I look at the garden differently now, because now I'm comparing. And what is it that I need to see? Because my answer is sitting right in front of me. And so I go to the garden, and as I'm going through the garden, I'm at a point where Satan is now casted doubt all over God's living word concerning Eve. And I know what this is all about when it's the doubt. Doubt, I hate doubt. Doubt is so dangerous, very, very dangerous. And I remember where I almost lost my faith, doubted my faith, and the channel was Still Small Voices. And I remember saying to myself, why is it she receives him almost every day? And I was so locked into this little bit of a deception of, vanity. It was all vanity, and I'm thinking, well, there's so many things that I can say, but nobody, what was happening? It was just pure vanity about this. And so I remember during this time, Jesus came to me and whispered in my ear to remind me, to bring me back. And he said to me in my ear, do you remember when I told you you had a Father in heaven? And I nodded my head. I just felt so weak. And then a song came to me. And the song was, put your hand in the hand of the man who stills the water. It was very scary. It reminds me of Peter. When Peter was walking on the water towards Jesus, and Peter turned away for 1 second, and he went down. And Jesus came over to him and picked him up and said, "O ye with little faith." And it only took a second. So I felt like Peter because he stood and watched Jesus walk on the water. And so that was the doubt that was cast over God's living word concerning Eve. So then when it came to the beguiling, yeah, well, I know about that too. And I thought, I was seduced also by man and spirit. And it's so evil. Being seduced, it's evil. It's the purest evil. Pedophiles do that, and they seduce children. They seduce them and pull them in, and then they pounce. And it's the seducing that is actually worse than the act. It is purely evil. So then I read where they're hiding themselves. And I knew that this was sex. I knew the knowledge that they received was sex. I just knew. I knew because when I was in my youth, when I was healing, I remember asking God, why, where did this where did this sin come from? It was everything around me, and it was the seducing that was the worst of all. I was suffocating in it. Right to the garden. So this is where the shame comes from, right? So then I'm reading on, and I find out that this was all done in spirit and not in flesh. And I always believed it was done in the flesh, but I was, taken by that. And I thought, okay, well, if, God uh, put enmity between the serpent seed and the woman's seed after the fact, well, what does that mean? What's the consequences to that? And when I seen these differences, I knew that I was protected and Eve wasn't. So what are the consequences to that? And then I shot to Cain, and I started looking at Cain, and then it went to Esau. So then I thought to myself, could this really be these things that I fought in spirit, with the testimony of God, Jesus here? Could this be the seed of Cain? So I'm there right now with that. And then that's when everything happened here with Iris and Jacoius 9. And the message God gave Iris in the dream, and the song that he gave me around the same time Iris received her song, I received mine. And I believe that Iris's dream was about a young man who was singing at the gate, but he was singing in a language nobody understood. Even Iris says herself that she doesn't understand, and she is a part of that not understanding.